tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
Responding to a routine call, Lufkin, Texas firefighters made a gruesome discovery. The partially burned body of a young woman was tied to her own bed. Authorities now need your help to find the murderer of 26-year-old Megan Kunkle. It was a brazen crime spree committed by an unlikely suspect that left 3 dead bodies in his wake. In 1970, 18-year-old Margo Freshwater was convicted of murder, but she escaped custody. She has evaded authorities for more than 3 decades. And tonight, a shocking new development. An apparent drowning causes suspicion when the supposed victim turns out to be a man awaiting trial for rape. Authorities need your help to determine if Strider Starfyre is dead or alive. A man and a woman inexplicably vanish in America's heartland. The massive search for the pair has failed to turn up anything except for a single bizarre clue. Growing up, Virginia Burns never knew that her father had a hidden secret, a previous marriage and another daughter. Now Virginia and her sister are finally together, thanks to you, our viewers. Join me for these stories of intrigue and deception, prime ingredients for unsolved mysteries. .4 a.m. Lufkin, Texas. Awakened by the smell of smoke, an apartment resident investigates. Flames are raging out of control in a unit on the 2nd floor. The man immediately calls 911. The Lufkin Fire Department arrives within minutes. With hoses drawn, the firefighters waste no time racing to the apparent source of the blaze. Apartment 616 is locked, requiring a forced entry to be made. The fire is confined to the bedroom of the small apartment. As firefighters extinguish the blaze, a chilling sight is revealed. Tied to the posts of the bed is a charred body of a woman. Homicide investigators are immediately called in.
She had been suffocated with a plastic bag and her throat had been cut very deeply, 2 different cuts, 1 on each side, and then the bed had been set afire. This crime was absolutely the meanest thing I've ever seen one person do to another.
Dental records would identify the victim as apartment resident Megan Kunkle. The 26-year-old woman worked at a local chicken processing plant and had been a Lufkin resident for 5 years. Investigators continue to face a perplexing question. Who could commit such grisly acts on this well-liked young woman? Megan Kunkle was born into a military family. Younger brothers Josh and Sean soon followed. In 1st grade, Megan was diagnosed with mild retardation, requiring that she attend special education classes.
Her life was never really easy. She wasn't always accepted. People would make fun of her, put her down, and she'd always come back with a kind word for them.
When Megan was in high school, her family settled in Lufkin, 175 miles southeast of Dallas. Megan would marry at 18 and move to Arkansas. But according to Sherry McClung, that marriage was abusive. When they separated, Megan returned to Lufkin and insisted on getting her own apartment.
Because Megan was so trusting and was so outgoing, she tended to be an easy target for some of these men. Men who are accustomed to looking for women who could be easy prey absolutely could tell that Megan wanted to please, that Megan wanted somebody to care for her, and that she was lonely. And I think that that is part of what happened here.
Megan's mother's suspicions may be on the mark. Earlier on the night of her murder, Megan Kunkle went to the Electric Cowboy, a local nightclub.
She was seen talking with a man at the Electric Cowboy Club, and that man did buy her 1 or 2 drinks. She talked with him off and on through the night at the club. She wasn't with him the entire night. No one at the club knew who this man was, and no one reported ever seeing him there before or since. Megan loved to dance, and sometimes her dancing was a little bit provocative, particularly for that area of Texas. She was asked to leave the club. She went to another club called the Sports Shack, just a little ways down the road from the Electric Cowboy Club. She talked to some people there and caught a ride with an employee of the Sports Shack home.
Megan arrived home just after 1:30 a.m. A close friend who lived in the same apartment complex was waiting up for Megan to hear the details of her night out.
Hey, can I come up there?
Wow.
Yeah, the manager came right up to me on the dance floor and told me I had to leave.
Well, what'd they do that for?
I don't know.
Megan's friend requested that we alter her voice and protect her identity.
Well, we were standing out there talking, and all of a sudden, there was this guy in his car, and he was speeding really fast, and he just did a dead stop.
He's driving crazy. He's gonna kill somebody.
But instead of getting out, the driver remained in the car.
Then I says, well, why is the guy just sitting there?
Hey, you know what? I think that might be my friend from the club.
Really?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go say hi to him.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Well, you be careful.
Okay.
As Megan's friend watched, Megan approached the driver. She seemed to recognize him. They began to talk.
I'll go back into the apartment to give me something to eat because I'm hungry. And then when I went back out, next time she was sitting inside the car. And which, each little thing, I was getting more worried, what she was doing. And then when I went back in again, and I came back out, the car was still there, but neither one of them was there. They were gone. And I was like, oh Lord.
Megan's friend was so concerned, she went up to Megan's apartment to check on her.
Hey,
Oh, hey.
everything all right?
Yeah.
You sure?
She said, hi. She says, I was right. It was my friend from the club. And I looked down to him, and he just nodded his head slowly and didn't say a word. And I didn't speak to him at all either. And I says, well, are you sure you're okay? And she says, yes, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Calm down.
Okay, I will. Okay, bye.
That would be the last time she would see Megan alive.
When Megan Kunkle's body was found, there was a remnant of a nightgown on her. Most of it had burned off. In interviewing men from her past, we learned that her normal sleeping attire would be something along the lines of shorts and a t-shirt. But if she were going to be romantically involved, she would sometimes wear a negligee or a nightgown. We feel like because of that, possibly she knew this person and was preparing for an intimate evening with them.
The very thought that Megan was killed by someone she trusted compounds Sherry McClung's grief.
I believe that Megan knew who the murderer was because she got in the car with this person. Megan would have gotten in the car with a person that she knew. There was not a forced entry.
I got a friend here, actually.
So this was someone that she let into the apartment
Yeah, I'm fine.
and that she had trusted.
Investigators questioned men with whom Megan Kunkle was known to have had relationships. However, each man was able to account for his whereabouts on the night of the murder. This sketch is based on Megan's friend's description of the man she saw with Megan in her apartment. He is a prime suspect in the murder of Megan Kunkle. The man is white, in his mid-20s to early 30s, with blonde hair and a light mustache. He wears gold-rimmed glasses. Investigators would also like to find this man. He was seen with Megan by the bartender at the Electric Cowboy Club on the night she was murdered. He is described as having a dark complexion and possibly being Hispanic. This man is not viewed as a suspect. Investigators simply want to question him about what he may have seen on that night. The year was 1970. Margo Freshwater, a blonde, wide-eyed teenager from Columbus, Ohio, found herself in an unlikely place: the Tennessee State Prison for Women. The one-time babysitter had just been convicted of first-degree murder. But Margo would not remain incarcerated for long. On October 4th, Margo and another inmate made an audacious escape. While being escorted by a single unarmed guard, Margo and her accomplice made a run for the fence.
The guard had to make a decision whether to stay with the main group or chase after them. All the guard could do was try to summon some help and have somebody to go after him.
Margo Freshwater has not been seen since. Margo Freshwater has managed to elude capture for more than 30 years, longer than any other woman wanted by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Police reason that she is blended back into the fabric of everyday life. But Margo Freshwater is a convicted killer. With your help, authorities hope to finally return her to jail. How did Margo Freshwater, a young woman with no criminal background, end up a murderer? The story begins in the office of Glenn Nash, a hard-drinking lawyer whose grip on sanity was beginning to slip. Nash was being investigated by the Memphis Bar Association for legal misconduct. He had come to the deluded conclusion that agents from the bar were conspiring against him.
Okay, it's done.
Glenn Nash was an intelligent person, but somewhere along the line, his drinking and mental situation apparently deteriorated, and he just took a left-hand turn.
Mr. Nash?
Glenn Nash.
Margo Freshwater.
Margo had come seeking Nash's help in getting her boyfriend out of jail. Who then took advantage of whom is open for debate.
Well, I'm here because of my boyfriend. He's in the Memphis jail right now for armed robbery.
Margo was a young, attractive blonde, very good figure, and Margo had the distinct ability to turn a man's head when she would walk by it.
And I just drove down from Ohio to help him out.
I believe Margo was seduced by Nash. She didn't have any life experience, especially with any kind of situation like this.
Margo had no money to pay Nash. She couldn't even afford a place to stay while in town. Although broke himself, Nash agreed to take the case pro bono. He also put Margo up at a local boarding house. The married 41-year-old and the 18-year-old then began a torrid affair. But Nash was increasingly consumed by paranoid delusions that agents from the Memphis bar were after him. One evening, he told Margo's landlady they were going bowling. Instead, a 3-state crime spree ensued.
All the money in the register right now. Right now, let's go, come on.
I believe that Glenn Nash had lost touch with reality.
Money, get the money, come on.
I really think he was fantasizing that he could go in and rob somebody and there wouldn't be any consequence to it.
Come on, come around, let's go. Come around, you, keep an eye. I don't know.
Nash ordered Margo to stay up front while he took the cashier to the back room. A customer came into the store and later told investigators that Margo waited on him. Meanwhile, Nash remained out of sight, accusing the cashier of being an agent of the Memphis bar.
I seriously doubt Margo knew that any of this was coming until it got started.
The cashier, Hillman Robbins, was tied up with rope and shot 5 times in the head. A .22 and .38 were both used in the murder. He left behind a wife and 2 children. Witnesses saw 2 people matching Margo and Nash's description, fleeing the liquor store and hopping into a white Ford Fairlane. 12 days later, eyewitnesses describe an almost identical scene at a Florida convenience store.
Let's go.
A couple exited the building and sped off in a Ford Fairlane. Inside the store was a body of Esther Boyer. She had been shot in the neck. Police at first did not connect the murders until they found Nash's car abandoned on a highway shoulder. In the trunk, they found rope and bullet casings that matched what was used in the Hillman Robbins murder. The car was traced to Glenn Nash, and an APB was issued. But the couple's murderous rampage was not over. A cab driver, C.C. Surratt, was shot to death shortly after picking up Glenn and Margo. The police staked out all the nearby bus stations. Their efforts soon paid off.
Glenn Nash, Margo Freshwater, you're under arrest. 4. Boys.
When they arrested them, they were transported to Hernando, Mississippi, to the DeSoto County Jail, where they were charged in connection with C.C. Surratt's murder.
Glenn Nash was declared insane, ruled incompetent to stand trial, and incarcerated at a mental hospital. Margo stood trial for the murder of C.C. Surratt. She testified that she was held prisoner by Nash and forced to participate in the crimes under threat of death. Investigators disagree over Margo's culpability in the crime spree.
Take this place.
I don't know if I can do this
You will
again.
do this.
Margo Freshwater, in my opinion, was in a psychological condition where she wouldn't attempt to escape from Nash, fearing being killed.
I don't think that Freshwater was a victim in any way. She had opportunity after opportunity to leave, not commit these crimes, but I think she enjoyed it.
The jury could not decide either and failed to reach a verdict twice. 3 years later, Margo was tried for the murder of the first victim, Hillman Robbins. She was found guilty and sentenced to 99 years in state prison. 18 months later, Margo and another inmate, Faye Fairchild, scaled a barbed wire fence, hitched a ride, and disappeared.
Once Faye and Margo escaped, they went from there to Baltimore, Maryland. Faye Fairchild was arrested in Chicago sometime later. The last time Margo Freshwater was seen was on a street corner in Baltimore, Maryland, where she said her goodbyes to Faye and Faye's niece and left.
After that, Margo Freshwater seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth.
I would say that she has changed her life around. She is probably living as a mother or maybe even a grandmother at this time. Margo committed a crime, and she needs to spend her time in prison and serve that sentence.
Update: Margo Freshwater has been caught. Police found her in Columbus, Ohio, living under the alias Tanya McCarter, a married mother of 3. She was taken into custody outside an athletic club by agents for the Ohio Bureau of Investigation. At the time, Freshwater was with her husband, youngest son and grandchild, none of whom were aware of her criminal past.
She said nothing and was surprisingly emotionless. She then wanted to say goodbye to her son and husband, and we allowed her to do that. She first gave her son a hug and was clearly whispering in his ear, and he started sobbing quite noticeably.
Freshwater was reincarcerated at the same Tennessee prison she escaped from 32 years earlier. Washington's Snake River.
How much longer before we get in?
I don't know, just a few minutes. We just gotta go around here and over.
After a late summer fishing trip, Strider, Starfyre, and another man headed for home. As dusk approached, concerns were raised about getting back before dark. As the boat sped across the water, Strider reached for a beer from an ice chest. The boat's driver heard his dog yelp, and when he looked around, Strider was gone.
Strider!
Never to be seen again.
Strider! Strider!
The apparent accidental drowning of Strider Starfyre has been in question ever since. Investigators quickly learned that Starfyre had a murky past and may have had reason to disappear. 10 days after he supposedly slipped and fell overboard, Strider Starfyre was due to stand trial in Roseburg, Oregon. One thing was certain: this charming and charismatic man was not who he appeared to be. Strider Starfyre first surfaced in Oregon in the mid-1980s. Within weeks, the enigmatic Starfyre had met a local woman. They fell in love and were soon married. By the early 1990s, the Starfyres had a son and daughter and had settled into a seemingly idyllic life in Roseburg, Oregon. The teenage daughter of a dear family friend was a frequent guest of the Starfyres. The girl visited so often that she became a second daughter to Strider and his wife, and a beloved sister to their kids. Whoever spent any time with Strider eventually would fall under the spell of his incredible charisma.
So it's about 1,200 hours, you know. Me and Tim were in this foxhole, all right? And we're pinned down. We can't get up, and we were trying to get our...
He often told romantic tales revolving around his supposed exploits serving with special forces in Vietnam, spying for the CIA, or fighting alongside the Irish Republican Army.
And I crawl on my belly, dragging him to get to the medic.
When he told us about being this savior, this crusader to help the little man, to pull the poor guy up by his boots and give the underdog his day, you tended to believe him. He wove his stories very well.
So the reason why we're called the Clan of Starfyre is because...
But there was one particular story even more fantastic than the others.
Village. I'm gonna be the prince of the house of Ellen Starr. No.
Strider Starfyre claimed he was the last surviving member of a Scottish clan called the House of Ellen Starr, and he apparently had proof.
You should. Here we have the document.
This is real?
Strider possessed a letter on embossed parchment stationery, proclaiming him the sole heir to the clan's fortune.
They tracked me down to tell me this. Is the family crest?
As her young friend grew up, she continued to spend time with the Starfyres, and Strider always made himself available to her.
He was a father figure when she had no father figure. She had no qualms of believing and feeling safe with him because he'd always been safe.
Something, Nina, I gotta tell you.
But according to the then 14-year-old girl, those feelings of trust and security were stolen from her one night in the Starfyre home.
Out of the blue, he started to profess his love to me and told me he'd been in love with me for years. That was a really terrifying moment.
After making his advance, Strider Starfyre, a married father of two, allegedly seduced and then had sexual relations with the minor. For more than a year, the traumatized 14-year-old would keep secret what had allegedly happened that night. But Strider Starfyre's carefully crafted persona had already begun to crumble. According to his wife, her suspicions that he was being unfaithful to her were confirmed the day he brought home an unexpected guest, his new internet business partner.
I had been getting a little bit of rumor that there was more than just business going on between them. And when they came home, it was exceedingly obvious that they were being intimate.
What the hell is that? Are you out of your mind?
Strider apparently stunned his wife by proposing that she welcome this woman into their home as his second wife. This was the last straw, and within weeks, she filed for divorce.
Take her with you.
But it was not until after their divorce was final that Strider's now former wife would apparently learn the true depth of his lies and deceit.
After Strider did that to me, my life really spiraled out of control. I couldn't make any friends at school, so I quit going. And I did a lot of drugs. And I decided that I couldn't deal with it anymore.
She wrote a note saying she was running away with her boyfriend, and she finally revealed the dark secret she said she'd been keeping.
Hello.
Strider's ex-wife then received a disturbing call from the teenage girl's stepfather.
He said she left a note, and in the note, she states that Strider molested her.
No, I just...
And I was torn between disbelief and belief.
The 15-year-old girl returned home safely the following day, but Strider's former wife was sickened by what he had allegedly done.
I was just overwhelmed with everything that had happened. I'd just been through a whole time during the divorce of finding out that he wasn't who he said he was, that the last 11 years really had nothing to do with reality.
Strider Starfyre was formally indicted on felony rape and sexual assault charges. Authorities would learn from this 15-year-old that there may have been more secrets to uncover in the Starfyre home.
When going over her case, she brought up another girl's name that she was aware was living there at the house during that time she was. That's when victim number 2 was brought up in this.
That I am
Years earlier, victim number 2, as she became known, had become close to the Starfyre family and often babysat their children. This alleged victim was just a 9th grader at the time she was first seduced by Strider Starfyre.
I'm gonna go back and I'm going to regain my kingdom.
Really?
She told authorities he had charmed her with fantastic tales of his Scottish inheritance and promises to make her his princess.
Anything you want, because you're the princess. You can have anything in the entire kingdom.
Even horses?
Yeah. You get
It's like he made the fairy tale, you know, and Strider really created a fantasy world for a lot of people, and for me it was the fantasy that was sort of where I really wanted to be in life, not where I was.
anything you want.
And it obviously wasn't just an isolated incident. I had to come forward not only to give validity to the other girl's claims, but also just to try and prevent this from happening to somebody else.
These were classic cases. Strider, he's in his 40s, obviously a mature adult, been around quite a while. These young girls haven't. He's learned to find these young girls that are in an emotional time in their life, and he zeroed right in on them and was able to manipulate them and do just what he's obviously probably done before.
Strider Starfyre was arrested and released on his own recognizance while awaiting trial. Then just 10 days before that trial was due to begin, Starfyre vanished.
We have a lot of people come up missing or drowned in the Snake River, but in my 13 years experience, I've never had one like this.
What time did you put the boat in the water?
The suspicions of investigators were quickly aroused. Did Strider Starfyre stage his own disappearance? Police found it strange that the boat was dry and didn't appear to have been used that day, and all the fishing gear on board was clean and neatly stowed away. Inside Starfyre's pickup truck, investigators were surprised to find a fishing license in the name of Daniel Chafe, which was determined to be Starfyre's legal name. They learned Strider Starfyre was only an alias, one of 2 he was known to use. Some knew him by the name of Curtis Jacoby. Further investigation determined that Strider Starfyre had never served in Vietnam, worked with the Central Intelligence Agency, or fought with the IRA.
I'm sure Mr. Starfyre is alive and well at this point. I don't believe Mr. Starfyre was ever on that boat. I don't believe he was ever on that river. I believe he's hoping that at some point, hopefully all this will just go away and he can lead on with a happy life.
Strider Starfyre is wanted on 13 felony charges related to the rape and sexual abuse of minors. Authorities fear he may be committing similar crimes. Last summer, Bill Rundle and Tracy Kenley set out for a leisurely drive along the remote country lanes of the Nebraska farmland. The pair had vague plans to meet Tracy's boyfriend later that evening. Bill and Tracy had met 6 months earlier, and by all accounts their relationship was platonic. Tracy, a healthcare specialist who worked with the elderly, and Bill, a forklift operator, got together at around 4:30 p.m. on August 17th. They drove off into the afternoon sun and vanished into thin air.
Hey, Bill!
The following day, Bill Rundle failed to show up for work.
I was concerned if he would have not showed up for work. Absolutely not. He would have called one way or the other. He would have let somebody know that he wasn't going to be there.
Tracy Kenley lived with her boyfriend of 7 years, Doug Wolf. She was also a no-show at her job.
Wake up, Doug. We're looking for Tracy. Have you seen her?
I knew it was pretty serious because Tracy, if she wasn't going to go to work, first thing she'd do would be to call into work and let them know that she was sick or whatever. The first thing I did was just hop up, get my clothes on, and head out the door and start looking. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to think at all.
It's not something that's supposed to happen in Hastings, Nebraska. Residents of the tightly knit rural community all knew Bill Rundle and Tracy Kenley and cannot imagine how the two could have simply disappeared. Nearly a year has passed, and the leads in the case are non-existent, except for one solitary clue. Bill Rundle's hat mysteriously surfaced 1 week after he and Tracy were last seen, in an area that had already been thoroughly searched. On the day Bill and Tracy vanished, there was little to foreshadow the bizarre events about to unfold. That afternoon, the two paid a visit to Tracy's parents' house, 38 miles southeast of Hastings, Nebraska.
Hey, hi, you guys.
Hey.
Hi, Mom.
So
nice
this
to meet you.
is Bill.
Yeah,
I'm Bill.
I get to meet you.
This is my mom, Sharon.
We had never met Bill before this, so we don't know anything about him. But we, it's like her dad said, any friend of Tracy's is a friend of ours.
So what do you do, Bill?
We never talked about where they were going when they left or what they were going to do. I guess we felt that she'd make it home safe.
But Tracy Kenley didn't go home. Instead, she called her boyfriend Doug at 11 p.m. and made tentative plans to meet him at a local bar at 12:30 a.m.
I'm just leaving my parents' house with Bill. What are you going to do after work?
Tracy and Bill were never heard from again. By examining cell phone records and transmission signals, police were able to pinpoint Tracy's location at the time of the call, a junction in the road 16 miles east of Hastings. The Clay and Adams County Sheriff's Departments organized a search of that intersection and the surrounding area. Authorities worried that Bill may have crashed his car into the towering cornfields that blanket the region. A 30-square-mile area was painstakingly gone over, but no sign of Bill, Tracy, or the Jeep turned up.
A lot of dedicated individuals came out and searched for 2 solid days. Some areas were searched 2 and 3 times. I believe in a 30-mile circumference, we've done a very thorough job of searching.
Not finding anything with as many searches as we've had, you would think you'd find something. There's just nothing. Nothing.
Police began to consider whether Bill and Tracy left voluntarily.
At the time that he disappeared, he was really lonely. From what I know of Tracy, she was a really gentle, sweet person. And I think that Bill was probably really attracted to that as a friend, and that at that point he did need a friend. And I think maybe they needed each other.
Could Bill and Tracy have been having an affair, kept completely secret from both their families and Tracy's longtime boyfriend? And could they have decided to run away together to start a new life away from the small-town scrutiny of Hastings?
Tracy's a very responsible person. There's no way that she would run away from her responsibilities. She was very close to her parents. She was close to me. I mean, if she didn't want to call me, if she ran off or something, the first people she would call would be her parents.
They didn't run away. I feel that in my heart because neither one of them took their toothbrush, neither one took their any change of clothing.
There's been no evidence as far as their credit cards, ATMs, phones have ever been powered up from the day they disappeared. No evidence has led us in that direction that they're still out there.
Then 1 full week after Bill and Tracy went missing, a baffling piece of evidence suddenly appeared. It was found at the same intersection where Tracy made the final phone call to her boyfriend, an area that had already been searched several times.
We had a farmer come to us who had recovered a hat, and the hat was sent into the lab just in case. Through lab analysis, it was found that the hat was Bill Rundle's.
Whereabout was that found? That was laying right down here.
We do not believe that Bill was wearing the hat when Bill and Tracy disappeared.
Was there anything else around it? Did you notice? No, just the hat laying there.
There had been 3 inches of rain in 2 nights after they had disappeared, and the hat was clean and did not appear to be out in the weather. Plus, most of our search teams went directly by that area, and we believe our search teams would have seen it if it would have been there.
Police are now convinced that the hat was planted, but by whom and why?
Bill and Tracy knew that they didn't have to meet Doug for at least an hour. It would have been very normal for Bill to find a place to pull over and maybe pulled into a shaded area possibly and just opened up a few beers and talked.
Is it possible that Bill and Tracy inadvertently put themselves in the path of a roaming killer?
Nebraska is an area where you travel through to get from the east or the west. There's always a possibility of somebody coming through the area that may have been a more severe criminal than we're normally used to.
But who could have murdered 2 young, healthy people, dispose of their bodies and car without leaving any trace of a crime? And why would a killer then plant Bill's hat 1 week later? Friends and relatives cling to the hope that Bill and Tracy are out there somewhere and will somehow turn up unharmed. Until that day, the search continues.
I'll never stop looking. We need some kind of clue. We have no clue. There has been nothing. It's just like they just disappeared.
They are snapshots from another place and another time. A proud young father cradles his newborn daughter. Virginia Burns always thought they were photos of her. After Virginia's father died, her mother revealed the truth. The little girl in the pictures was in fact Virginia's half-sister. Her name was Susan.
Come here, sweetie.
As a young man, Virginia's father had been previously married.
Daddy's gonna miss you.
But circumstances and a long-standing dispute with his mother-in-law had forced him to leave his wife and his baby daughter, Susan.
I'm sorry, Joe.
In later years, his attempts to locate them met with failure.
My mother admitted that she didn't tell me to protect me. She had no way of knowing where my sister was, and why tell me if there was no way I could meet her?
Looking back, Virginia suddenly understood the poignance of one memorable incident from her childhood. For her 6th birthday, Virginia's parents gave her the doll of her dreams.
So what have you thinking about, sweetie?
I love her. She's beautiful.
Well, what's her name?
I don't know. What do you think I should call her?
He says, why don't you call her Sweet Sue?
How about Sweet Sue?
And I did, not realizing that that was the name of my sister. She needs to know she has a father who loved her. And secondly, I have a sister out there, and I'm more than ready to be a sister.
When we aired this story last spring, we had high hopes that Sweet Sue would be found. We weren't disappointed. Bethina Susan King lived in Oklahoma City, only a short flight from Virginia's home near Denver, Colorado. The two women spoke on the telephone that night and sensed an instant bond. When they met, that bond was confirmed.
I watched each person as they got off the airplane, and none of them, I knew that they weren't her, but when she came walking out those doors, I knew her instantly. I just knew, that's my sister.
I was really nervous. I didn't know what to expect. So when I walked through, there was Jenny and her husband, and Jenny was holding this huge sign that says, "Desperately Seeking Susan." And I had planned on just walking by to see if she would recognize me, but I couldn't. I got to her and dropped my suitcase, and we hugged and cried and kissed and hugged some more, and had a crowd looking at us, and just fell in love with her instantly.
Since the reunion, Virginia and Susan have been thrilled to discover how much they have in common.
Then I make my bouquets and say they're Jenny flowers.
Yeah.
They like the same food, the same clothes, enjoy the same hobbies, even talk alike.
We finish sentences for each other. We have the same things. My husband has just, he sits here and shakes his head. He says, they are so much alike.
That's your father. It's my daddy.
I feel like that if our dad was here right now, that from what Jenny has told me about him, he would be tickled to death to have both of us together.
See, look at the facial expressions.
I would love to give him a hug, to tell him that, I'd searched for him since I was 21, thought about him since I was 12. I think he would be happy for us. He'd probably think, oh Lord, the world's not safe now with two of them.
The doll that had stood in for Susan for so many years now had special meaning for both women, a tangible reminder of their father's love.
And that was my Susie.
She's precious. I knew it was a gift from our dad to her, but I also felt like at that moment that it was mine too.
Mm-hmm. It's ours. Definitely.
It's fine. It's all right. I love you. I love you too.
For every mystery, there is someone, somewhere, who has the answer. Join me again for Unsolved Mysteries.